Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range to talk about a very cool air gun. Now, check this out. Air guns have been around since the late 1700s. As a matter of fact, Lewis and Clark, when they were exploring the Louisiana Purchase in 1803-ish, they actually used an air gun. They kept an air gun with them, they hunted with it, and yeah, they carried that around with them. So the kings of England would use air guns to hunt with and to target practice with. The military, the VZ-35, made by the Czechs, was an air gun training rifle. Looked very much like a Kar-98, if you will. So air guns for military use and just in historical use have been around for a very long time. But I would say this type of an air gun is a little bit different, mostly because it uses a canister like I'm holding here that has 3,600 pounds of nitrogen gas pressure kept inside of it. Now, PCP rifles, which are pre-charged pneumatic air guns, are nothing new. You can find super powerful 45 caliber air rifles that you can, charge off a scuba cylinder, things like that. But this is a PCP type rifle, if you will, but it uses its own self-contained nitrogen cartridge that you can pick these up. I found these available in my area at places called Rural King or Runnings, and so you can also find them at Cabela's and stuff like that. So these little canisters are out there, but you take the 3,600 PSI, it has a regulator in here that steps it down to 1,800 PSI, and you'll get about 45 shots, and this one's 22 caliber, but it's also available in 177. But you get about 45 shots out of one of these nitrogen cartridges. And so that's really, really kind of cool. And on top of that, the gun also has a 10-shot magazine on the 22 version that I have here. And it's really easy to load. So we're going to dive into the Komplete, spelled with a K. That's what this is. It's from Umarex. This is the air gun as it comes out of the box with the optic and everything like that. And so we're going to have a little bit of fun with it today, do a little bit of shooting with it, and tell you about this interesting air rifle that's surprisingly affordable. I can find them online for less than 200 bucks. So they're not super expensive, but they do bring high-powered air pressure to the game. You heard me refer to this as a PCP, or a pre-charged pneumatic rifle. The Komplete, which this is its box, they're calling it the NCR, and I believe that stands for nitrogen cartridge rifle. And that's kind of a new class, if you will, of air gun. And so when you get the air gun, it's going to come in a box much like this. And this is my 177. So this was sent to me by Umarex, the 22, to do a video with, but I was so impressed with it that I wanted to pick one up. I found a 177 at my local store. It was on the shelf, and I picked it up, and this is for me and my son to play with. So this is exactly how it would come in the box. The scope would not be attached. It'll be stored separately in the box right here, and you put it on yourself. But the 4x32 optic does come with the gun. And you'll get a bunch of packaging material and stuff like that in here. Everything you'll need, owner's manual, do's and don'ts, all that good stuff. You'll get some extra O-ring seals, an extra magazine. So they'll come with 2 magazines. There's a little magazine in there if I can get my finger down in there to grab it. Or not. It can just stay in there. You just have to trust me on that one. It's right there. And then it comes with a CO2 cartridge. But wherever you pick up the nitrogen cartridge, wherever you pick up the air gun, you'll also be able to find the nitrogen canisters there. I think I paid $19 for 2 of them. And so, yeah, this is what it's going to look like right out of the box. And of course, it's going to come with that little hex key also to degas the rifle. So we'll set the 177 aside. Now, I'm not an expert on air guns. I've always had them. Just like most of you watching this video right now, you probably started off in the world of firearms shooting a BB gun. I had a Red Ryder. I had a Crossman pump. Air gun, what was it, the 880 power line or something like that? Now I'm reaching way back in time. Had air guns for BB guns. I had a Colt Python that was a CO2 canister, a 177 caliber pellet gun that I had. You put the CO2 canister in the grip, and all those cool things I played with as a kid. So I've always had BB guns. You've probably had BB guns, but boy, has that technology changed. And so that brings us to the Komplete, which you see here. Now this rifle's pretty darn lightweight. It's made out of mostly polymers, and we'll just kind of start off back here and move our way forward. So the polymer is a dense polymer. It's not hollow. It's like foam filled. It's like an M16A2 buttstock, if you will. It has about the same feel to it, so it's very rigid. Moving forward, you have kind of a almost vertical pistol grip, which is kind of a new thing, which I really like. You'll find this on a lot of, on traditional rifles, chassis system type rifles. You're going to find that really vertical pistol grip on the wrist stock. So I do like that feeling. Have a nice large trigger here. So for a gloved hand, you're going to be able to get your finger into the trigger guard. You have a cross block safety that's actually right on the trigger, so you can just easily knock it off, go to fire, and then put it right back on. Moving up, this is your charging handle. So with each shot, you'll have to pull this charging handle to the rear and push it back forward. And when you do that, it will index to the next pellet in the cartridge or the magazine that attaches to the left-hand side of the gun. To unload it, you're going to pull the charging handle to the rear. You're going to grab the magazine and just pull it out. And then you can see the chamber area right there. And then when I close this, you can see how the little rod would push a pellet into the chamber and ready it for firing. But it's important that you open this up before you try to take the magazine out. Otherwise, you're not going to get it out. You're going to break the rifle trying. On top, we have a standard 1913 rail. And this is polymer, but it seems to be a very dense, thick, heavy polymer. So you don't have to put the 4x32 optic from Umarex that's on it on the gun. You can put whatever optic you would like. But this is a nice place to get started. It's a decent optic, but it's not going to give you, incredible results if you're used to higher end stuff. But it does functionally work just fine with the gun. You certainly can't beat it for the price. Coming down here, we'll see we have our barrel, and it's a very, very quiet rifle with this muzzle device and everything on it. It almost sounds like it's broken when it fires. It's so quiet, which is really, really kind of nice. And then you'll notice that we have M-lock slots down here on the bottom. So if you want to put a bipod on here or something like that, this is just standard M-lock. You have your release, which is just a pinch here that will release the cover for your nitrogen cartridge that powers the rifle. Now, as I mentioned, the cartridges themselves start off at 3,600 feet per second, or 3,600 pounds of air in there. And then there's an internal regulator that will step that down to 1,800 PSI. And then they'll give you roughly 45 shots at full power before that gas pressure starts to drop off, and the velocity will start to reflect the fact that the cartridge is starting to go dead. And so, as I've said, I'm not an expert on air guns. So if you're a hardcore air gunner, there's probably questions about this particular air gun you may have. I don't know that I can answer them all. I'm a very high level 30,000 foot user of air guns, so I'm more or less the trigger puller. But these are just features of the gun that I've noticed simply by playing with it. So next, let's load the gun up and do a little bit of shooting with it, and I'll show you just how quiet this thing is. And what's kind of cool with the 4x32 scope that comes on it, even though the pellets are moving right around 850, 900 feet per second, that's in our testing, you can see them in the scope arcing towards the target. Plus, we will get some actual velocity data for you guys so you can see exactly what type of velocity we're getting. I also want to answer one quick question. Some of you folks may say, well, why nitrogen? We got CO2 cartridges out there. And CO2 cartridges operate, I believe, right around 800 PSI. Again, these are operating at 3,600 PSI, much larger volume. And nitrogen has a unique property that in cold weather like you see today, you're not going to see a massive drop in air pressure in the cartridge or in the gun because of wild fluctuations in temperature. CO2 is going to give you different performance on a 100-degree day versus a 20-degree day. And so nitrogen kind of negates a lot of that. And so you should get more consistent power delivery with nitrogen. So you get higher gas pressure with this system, and you also get more consistency than you would with a CO2 powered system. All right, so let's load her up and do a little bit of shooting. When it comes time to reload your rifle, it's a fairly simple process, and it'll come with the tool that you need to degas the rifle, which this part is really kind of important. So unless you completely shoot all the air out of it, you don't want to unscrew that cylinder until you have released all that gas pressure, especially since these cartridges operate at such a high pressure. And now I'm going to invert the rifle, and right here is a little port. And this is your degas port. So what you're going to do is you're going to stick the tool into the port, and you're going to slowly turn it until you hear that gas come out. And you're just going to let that gas bleed out. The last shot we fired, we're getting 510 feet per second, which tells me that the gas charge is getting weak. You don't want to get your hand too close to this. This is nitrogen gas coming out of here, which is extremely cold. All right, so there you go. No more gas left. So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten this back down. You don't want to put a new cylinder in. This is critical. You don't want to screw a new cylinder in without first tightening that valve and closing it. Now you just pinch your cover. There's a little pinch release on both sides. I'm going to pinch that, slide that off, and then you can just unscrew the nitrogen cylinder. Keep it away from your face. A little bit of residual gas left in there. Not bad. There you go. All right, take a new cylinder. And I found these at my local runnings, which is very similar to a Rule King or something like that. I have seen these rifles for sale at places like Bass Pro. So you'll be able to get these nitrogen cylinders. Now these are super high pressure. Now to reload it, I'm going to set the cylinder in. You can see where the port is in here. I'm going to set the cylinder in. The cylinder is threaded, and I'm going to start screwing it down. I'm going to screw it down until I hear it pop and start to gas. There's no ring seal in there, and then I'm going to crank it about a half a turn past that, which should seal the gas system. All right. Should be good. And you have a new cylinder in your rifle. So loading the cartridge or the magazine up is pretty darn simple. And you're going to start with the clear side facing up, and then you just have this little wheel that you can turn, and again the 22 will hold 10 rounds. Now, there are a bazillion different types of pellets out there, and me not knowing what might be best for this rifle, I learned later from watching videos that this rifle really was giving really good accuracy. For one of the reviewers I saw a video on, he was getting about half-inch groups at about 40-45 yards, and he recommended a certain pellet type, which I don't have. And so pellet guns can be very, very finicky, especially when you're pushing pellets at extreme velocities. I've seen this in 177 caliber guns. I bought one for my oldest son years ago, and it really was very particular about the pellet that you fired, and it liked there's these new pellets that aren't just pure lead. They're kind of an alloy, and it seemed to like those much better than just a standard lead pellet. But one thing I noticed with this was that, and these are both 22 caliber cans of pellets. These have a little BB in the end of them, and these have like these little, bitey tip on the front of them. But one thing I noticed is that these pellets just kind of fall through the magazine if I'm not careful. So when I put these in, I kind of do it upright, and then you just turn to the next position, hold it, put another pellet in, and turn it. And then as you do this, again, you can do it up to 10 times, there is a little bit of a ratcheting mechanism in there that's taking place. So once you put a pellet in, it will lock in that position. So it just locked in that position. Okay, so I haven't fully loaded the magazine. Let's set these aside. Now you're going to take the clear window, keep it facing you. You're going to pull the charging handle to the rear so it's open. Pull the existing magazine out, set it aside, and you're going to set the magazine in like this, and it'll just kind of friction fit, click in, and then you close the charging handle, and now it's ready to go. Keep in mind your safety is right here on the trigger. That way is fire, that way is safe. And I have just a steel target at 50 yards. I'm shooting at a bullet mark. And so we just got the Garmin up and running. That was 809 feet per second. We're nowhere near 45 shots yet. Let's see. 871, there we go. That's more consistent with what we've been seeing. 852. .868. Nope, I think I was out of pellets. Nothing on that one. So as you can tell, the gun is extremely quiet, and we're getting about 870 feet per second out of these 14.5 grain pellets. Now this would be a great rifle, given the velocity and the pellet weight, for something like small game, right? You're not going to go out and hunt deer with this particular rifle. You might be thrown off by a 3,600 PSI gas pressure, but really this thing is going to be great for squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, stuff like that, or just target shooting. Now, I'm probably going to have to pick up one of the 22s for myself as well. I do want to play around with it. Like I said, this other reviewer that I had seen his accuracy test, it was actually quite impressive. I didn't really expect to see really good accuracy out of it, but he seemed to be getting that. I haven't, the pellets I have out here are just marginal. I can watch and see at 50 yards. They're shooting about like that. And again, I think that's simply because I didn't choose the right pellets. I do want to pick up the right pellets. Now, this 22 is not mine. This does have to be sent back to Umarex, but the 177 is mine, and I'll definitely be doing more shooting with it here coming up. In that last segment, you may have noticed the door behind me open up, and that's because my son had found the pellets we were looking for. And these are some of the pellets I had found at Runnings, at a local store here. And these are some of the pellets that are going to be of an alloy type. And so here's some of the 22s. These are 9.8 grains. And it says 20% more punch. So we're going to find out what a 9.8 grain pellet will give us velocity-wise versus the 14.5 grainers that we've been shooting. This should be interesting. $9.97. $9.97. Very consistent. 1,000. So we actually went over 1,000 feet per second with those 9.8 grains, so 10 grain, if you will, pellets. Now that's really interesting. So now I could also tell by looking through the scope that these super lightweight ones were going everywhere, man. They were not doing well out of the 22, but that's why I picked these up, because they were so lightweight, and it's going to give us that 1,000.6 velocity. I think if you're going to do hunting or anything like that, just use a conventional lead pellet. There's tons and tons and tons of pellets out there that you can choose from. I just pick a handful of different types of brands and stuff like that, run them through your gun and see what gives you the best performance. It's not that different from a traditional rifle that uses gunpowder and lead bullets that are wrapped in copper jackets. You got to do the same thing. Pick a handful of ammunition, figure out which one that gun likes. All right, so one thing I didn't mention when I was going over the features of the firearm is it does have an adjustable trigger, so you can adjust that trigger to the pull weight that most suits you. All right, with that being said, we have a target at 50 yards, and first up are some of the 14.5 grain Gammo pellets. These have the little BBs, if you will, in the nose of them. Got 5 rounds in the little magazine. And let's go ahead and fire our first group. All right, so that was the first group, 50 yards. Next, I'm gonna try 5 rounds of these piranhas at the top target. And if you look at the velocity, we're getting very consistent velocity, about 870 some feet per second. And a much tighter group, 874 feet per second, a much tighter group out of these piranhas. So we had a nice little group down there, which is actually pretty darn good. So we'll have to measure it and see how she stacks up, but definitely something I could hunt squirrel, rabbit, whatever with out to 50 yards. Very, very easy to make those shots. Very fun rifle to shoot. So this thing is a lot of fun, in my opinion. It's a lot of bang for the buck at under 200 bucks. It's really tough to beat. Now, I know some of you guys are going to complain about having to go out and buy nitrogen cartridges, but again, I paid like $19 for a couple of them. You get about 45 shots. So if you're using it not just for plinking, but for hunting and things like that, I don't think the cost is all that crazy. What I do like is the fact that it uses this nitrogen. Nitrogen has those unique properties I talked about earlier, but one thing that this gun can do that CO2 powered guns cannot do is you can leave this fully charged cartridge in the gun when you store it. Just make sure you store it unloaded safely, but you can leave the weapon charged with its nitrogen cylinder in there, and it's not going to break down and ruin your seals or things like that. So that is one of the other benefits. And keep in mind, nitrogen is non-toxic. The vast majority, over 70% of the gas we breathe every day, is actually nitrogen. So it's a really cool gas. And so it just simply makes a lot of sense to me. It's very cool. Like I said, I purchased my own 177 for that reason, because I really thought this is a really, really cool, novel idea. Now let's talk about the accuracy we got here really quick. So this first group is with the Gamma, with the pellets that had little BBs in the end. Yeah, and this measured 2.2 inches center to center. So yeah, 50 yards. Then we stepped up to the piranhas and we fired 5 shots at the same distance, got a 1.1 inch group. So this kind of goes to what I was talking about earlier in the video, finding the right pellets for the gun based on what I've seen from other people, airgun channels that have been talking about this. It is possible at around 40 yards to get, you know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch groups. I'm not too far off that with the piranha pellets. So the accuracy is certainly there. The rifle certainly can deliver the goods if this is something that you're interested in for hunting and things like that. That's what I want to use it for. So for squirrel and rabbit, you'll definitely probably see me posting things on Twitter/X of game that I've harvested with the complete nitrogen-powered air rifle. All right, so if you guys have any questions, of course, you can ask those questions down below. I do try to stick around the first couple of days after a video goes live to answer the questions you guys may have. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel so we can continue to bring you content like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. Also, over on X, we now have subscriptions. We're posting exclusive content over there just for our X subscribers, so also check us out on X. There will be a link down below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the thanks and support button underneath underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash either one of those buttons. You can help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Please swing by, check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 16 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.